Hello everyone, my name is Zach and welcome to my channel. Amongst other things, I'm a reenactor and a jouster, but today I'm doing a short video about St George's Day. Well, it's not really about St George's Day, it's actually about St George. And actually it's not really about St George either, it's more about dragons. I like dragons. I think pretty much anyone who's into knights probably likes dragons in some way. Anyone who's into fantasy in the way that I do probably likes dragons. Dragons are great, and the amount of literature and stories and things that have been written about dragons is it's proof, isn't it? Everyone loves a good dragon and a good story about a dragon. But what I want to talk to you today is about the way that we look back on history with our modern eyes and we read something into it that actually isn't. It's an intellectual snobbery which comes from where we are in history and looking back and using our ideas and our language onto history. Now, there's something that I've heard quite a lot, maybe you've heard it as well, and that is that people from the past found dinosaur bones and they looked at them and they didn't realise what they were, but they thought they must be some kind of giant lizard, so they made up these stories about dragons, and they invented these stories about dragons, and it explains the dinosaurs to them. But actually, they weren't dragons, because dragons didn't exist. They were dinosaurs. Okay. Now that, to our mind, from our linear perspective, looking back, makes sense. Okay. People in the past found some bones. They thought, oh, we'll make up a thing. It's a dragon, and it's really cool. It's a big lizardy thing, and they fought with people and so on. Okay. But they were wrong. Ah, what silly people in the past. How wrong they were. These things were not dragons. They were in fact dinosaurs. If only wise people from the present, such as us, had been around to tell them how wrong they were. No, dear viewer, this is not history. This is not how it works. You see, the way that it worked actually is, if we're going to take this theory that dragons come from people finding dinosaur bones, what happened was people found some bones of some giant lizards and they came up with a name for them, which was dragon. Over time, other people who hadn't seen these bones decided that these dragons couldn't possibly have existed because they had never seen a lizard that large. They had never seen the bones. And so dragons became known as something that had never existed, that was a myth. Dragons had never existed. Giant lizards that were huge and nasty and mean had never existed. And they were a figment of people's imagination. But then, later on in history, some other people found some bones of some giant lizards, well, fossils of some giant lizards, and they came up with a name for them. And they said, oh, these are dinosaurs. What a great new name that we've come up with for a giant lizard. And no one's ever found a giant lizard remains such as this before. So we've come up with this new name for it, dinosaur. Terrible lizard. Is it terrible lizard? That's what it means, I think. So they invented this whole new name for it. And then they looked back on people and they thought, oh, hang on a second. Maybe when they were talking about dragons, they had actually found a bone of a dinosaur, but they were too silly to realise that it was actually a dinosaur. Well, the word dinosaur hadn't been invented previous to, I think, the 19th century. Maybe it was 18th century. The word dinosaur didn't exist. Up until that point, the word for a terrible lizard was a dragon. So whenever people are talking about dragons, they're talking about dinosaurs. They didn't invent a myth. They weren't stupid and thought, oh, these things that are actually dinosaurs are dragons, and dragons are so weird. They're dinosaurs. It's just the name for dinosaur. The medieval people were the same as you and I. In about 300 years' time, they might have a new word for dinosaur. And when they look back on books about Jurassic Park, they might think, oh, what primitive people, calling them dinosaurs. What ridiculous pictures they have of these strange dinosaurs. Due to our knowledge and due to the fossils that we found, we now know that they look much different. Maybe they looked more like peacocks or something. We're already finding out that what we thought about dinosaurs 10 years ago isn't actually true. This is me just kind of getting a bit overly worked up. The point I'm trying to make here is that we have an intellectual snobbery when it comes to history. Because we have more or different information to people in the past, we think that therefore we must be right and they must be wrong. And words changing actually has an effect on this. We think, oh no, they're silly stories about dragons, when actually they were thinking about dinosaurs. No, dragon, dinosaur may as well be the same thing. Both things just means a massive big lizard. Okay? So we read an intellectual snobbery into it. We think, oh, the information that we have now is correct. We know more than people in the past. Well, we might have more data, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we're correct. We are already discovering in paleontology and in our study of dinosaurs that things that we knew, I'm using air quotes there if you're just listening, things that we knew 10 years ago are not actually true. Okay, so our information in 10 years' time might be different as well. We are not necessarily more right than people in the past. People in the past might have had more or different information than us. We might think of things as impossible. There are many times when I personally have thought of things as impossible, which have actually turned out to be true. A really good example is things in my study of arms and armour. There are things that I have thought of as, oh, this never happened. This wasn't a thing. When actually, later study, just of my study that I've done, or posts that have come up on Facebook, have completely disproved my theory. That should be broadened to a wider context. So, dragons, did they exist? Well, yes they did. At the moment, it's the fashionable thing to call them dinosaurs. In the past, we probably called them dragons. In the future, who knows what we're going to call them. But let's not be snobby about people in the past. They were just like us. They worked with the information that they had, and they came to the conclusions that they could. Thank you very much for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it. Do keep checking back on the channel. Stay subscribed if you are. If you aren't subscribed, why not? Hit all of the buttons except for the dislike button. If you've already hit the dislike button, then hit it again. Does that stop it from disliking? Or do you need to hit the like button now? I don't know. Hopefully I'll see you in my next video. Bye bye.